I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Stephen A. Hart. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am blessed and highly favored, my brother.
Well, there we go. You know, in Trinidad, some of our friends say, I am blessed and highly flavored.
I love that one. I like more of that.
It's great to connect with you, Stephen. Tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Clarksburg, Maryland, which is about 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C.
All right, and I do hear the Caribbean tongue somewhere mixed in there. What country are you from in the Caribbean?
Born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica.
There we go. Yeah, man. Well, Stephen, do tell us, which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
So I'm curious about that as well. I believe we got connected on LinkedIn. I'm a podcaster and I'm a marketer and a creative at heart.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the podcast. Let's start from there.
Sure. I'm the host of the Trailblazers.fm podcast. It's one I began almost 2 years ago. And really, it is there for me to explore and really highlight stories of today's most accomplished Black professionals, be it entrepreneurs or corporate leaders.
So is it that you had a challenge in getting the information as well from Trailblazers, and that's why you're doing this?
You know, the inspiration for it was really, I have two young ones. And a few years ago, I was inspired to highlight stories of real everyday people, Black professionals, who defied the mainstream media, that says the only people that could be role models to my then 5-year-old would have been athletes, musicians, or celebrities of some type, right? And I looked all around me in my community at friends of mine who I'm now 40 years old. So I have a ton of friends who are now, close to 20 years out of college, who are now experiencing tremendous success at whatever they're passionate about, but yet no one was highlighting their journey. And so I thought that was where the light bulb moment went off. And that's when I thought, let's put a podcast around this vision and see where it goes. And now we're almost 100 episodes in. I'm not like you.
Yeah, which is cool. But, the podcast I listened to at the time of this recording was episode 97. So you're not too far off at all. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations. That's great. Thank
you.
Yeah, my podcast is totally different in terms of what I'm doing. I mean, that conversation was like almost an hour, right? I'm doing 12 minutes. So you're good. You're good. I love it. So you're doing this podcast. Is it that you listen to a lot of podcasts as well?
Yeah, I do. I actually began listening to podcasts maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And as a marketer, day to day, I found that especially in the digital sphere, it's really hard for you to read books and stay abreast of what's happening and where the puck is moving in the digital sphere. And so I found it to be a great way for me to be able to consume content from influencers and the movers and shakers in the marketing sphere and figure out where things were moving and stay abreast and begin to put some of that into application.
Now, there's something in preparing for your conversation where I saw media cybernetics. I didn't get to Google it immediately after, but as you're here, right, what is media cybernetics?
It's a software company that develops image analysis software for scientific applications. So folks in the life science sphere, as well as people who are in QA, in the QA industry, maybe in China, that would need to derive data from an image that they're capturing using some type of microscope or scientific camera. Our software is kind of like a Photoshop, like a toolkit of sorts that allow them to do measurements on that image and derive data from it.
Sounds intriguing. Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah, caught my attention. Well, tell us, where's the best place for us to connect with you or connect with the podcast, Stephen?
tbpod.com is pretty much where I would direct your listener, your amazing audience, and they can pretty much pick up all our social platforms from there.
And what's one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years?
Well, over the last 3 years, I've been a father to two. And, when I'm not podcasting, I do a good bit around branding. So I speak a bit on the topic. And the podcast actually highlighted for me the need for individuals to really have a good, solid digital footprint. And so I consult a good bit with individuals as well as small brands on how they can establish a good, sound digital footprint.
How does it make you feel to see your journey where you went from a listener of a podcast to now coach, right, around the digital world?
Well, as it relates to the podcast, and the timing couldn't be more more ideal, but I just returned from a conference that would not have happened had it not been for the podcast. I attended an event called Rumble Young Man Rumble, and it was attended by some 200 leaders around the country who are focused on really elevating Black male achievement and elevating a platform for Black men and boys. And it was great to interact with those leaders. It was even more important for me to be in a room with young boys in cities from Baltimore to Louisville to Detroit, hotbeds, right, where Black boys are struggling from systemic issues within those cities, right? And I sat at a table with a young man who they call Flyweights. It happened at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky, home of Muhammad Ali. And I sat with a young man for 2 days, and on the last day, I'll just nickname him Vin to keep him his identity anonymous. But Vin got up and shared that, in the first grade, right? And I have a second grader in school right now, but he shared a story. His truth was that in the first grade, a teacher told him not even to worry about learning how to read and do math because he'd be in jail pretty soon. Right. And so it really just put a completely different view on how I step into this podcast going forward, because I really want kids like Vin to know that he is valued and to know that he has opportunity, and to help him become aware of a myriad of options available to him, right? Just based on the stories that I've been able to share, and I love these stories because you can appreciate, you hear the challenges and you hear the failures and you hear how people have been able to step into their success through those journeys, right? And it's my hope that kids like Vin will realize that their circumstance today doesn't necessarily determine their tomorrow.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that, my friend. Amazing audience. You're hearing it from Stephen A. Hart. Again, he is the podcast host of Trailblazers.fm. Do check that out. Woo! Bringing it. You're welcome. Well, Stephen, let's switch gears for a moment now, and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Stephen, what is your earliest childhood memory?
I thought about this, and I was trying to tell you another story. I don't have as vivid a memory as like my wife. I thought about this question, and I know you'll never hear this one again. I was maybe 6 years old, and every day I would remember getting hot water with my mom, getting some licks because I was just struggling to learn to read.
Right.
I'd do my schoolwork, and then, I'd go to school, and the same issue, right? And one day I just decided, I was going to end this mess. So I packed some matches and some newspaper in my backpack, and I went in the bathroom and tried to light the newspaper. And some older kids came in and put it
out. So how old do you think you were?
Probably about 6.
Yeah, 6, right? So, all right. So we know why you think it's so clear, right? Well, how do you see this memory connecting to who you are today?
Why? Interestingly enough, I'm just not somebody that just likes to sit in the status quo. I If I don't like something, I'm gonna change it, right? You know, Steve Jobs said, if you wake up enough days and you don't like what you see happening, right, you need to change the picture you're in, right? And that's me. I've just never been the person to just sit in and accept what's happening. You know, I will change it in a heartbeat. The entrepreneur in me is just wired that way.
Yeah. But there are two things I'd say. I'd say the funny thing after, and then let me say the serious thing. Like, I guess that is what connects to Trailblazer, right? And I think I just rebranded your podcast in that it's Trailblazers that Fireman.
I love it.
That's amazing. All right, my friend, if we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
MC Hammer, You Can't Touch This.
Of course, it's hot. it's on fire. Love it. All right, Stephen, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form, so it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Stephen?
Yes.
Stephen, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yes, my 2 kids.
Well, you said you spoke of your wife, so you are married, right? You have 2 children. Do you believe in God?
I do.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I absolutely do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Not a chance.
How about 3 hours a week?
Nope.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
More than 8.
If you, Stephen, had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Stephen A. Hart, what would you say that is?
My mission in life is to help 100,000 people stand out when they're not in the room.
Love it. Ooh, Stephen, this was a great pleasure, my friend. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I believe that our reputation, our credibility, and our opportunities are all wrapped up within our personal brands. So take care of your digital footprint.
Love it. Stephen A. Hart, my friend, great pleasure. Really had fun with this one. Thank you, my friend, for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.